Hello. Let's take a look at what to expect for the first lecture test. So what we're looking at here are your lecture handouts. I actually have them over here, but one of my screens isn't working, so I'm just going to show you that on the computer here. So as we scroll down, again, this page here just lets you know what to expect on all of the tests, and keep going. So this first page here, this first set of material is going to be over lecture test 1. Be sure, I don't know if it has the testing center link there or if it has the dates and times, but be sure you're aware of when the testing center is open, their hours, their location, so that way you don't miss a test or not show up at the right time and they're closed or something like that. So on this first page here, on all of the lecture content, I went ahead and put down just a little box here for you to be able to put down when the test is due, date and time, so that way you're aware, you've got it written down. This first lecture test is going to be over chapter 17, which is the endocrine system, and chapter 18, the cardiovascular system. The next page you're going to run into are the things to know. This is pretty much what to expect on the test. So I design the PowerPoints from this information here. So I go through the chapter, pull out what's important, set them up as objectives, and then build the PowerPoint from that. So in chapter 17, what you're going to need to know is to be able to compare and contrast the nervous system and the endocrine system in terms of communication. We've already talked about the nervous system, so that's going to be a review. Endocrine system is going to be new. Again, there's a section in the PowerPoint for you to be able to, where I provide that information, and then you're going to have to provide that back to me on the test. Number 2, distinguish the types of intercellular communication, their importance, the mechanisms and effects. Number 3, what is the difference between the endocrine glands and exocrine glands, and no examples. We talked about we're talking about exocrine glands in A&P 1, so that should be a review. We're going to talk about endocrine glands in chapter 17, so that might be the new component, but you do need to be able to tell me, salivary glands, is it endocrine or exocrine, things like that. Define the 4 types of chemical signaling and give an example of each. Number 5, identify the major organs and tissues of the endocrine system, their location in the body, and what hormones they secrete, as well as their overall function. Folks, this bullet point right here, that's huge. Number 5, that is a lot of information in that one objective. You're going to also be going over that in lab. If you've already had lab and you're just maybe retaking the class or something, you should have that information. I'm going to show you in the packet here where, maybe how to help learn that content. Number 6, the 3 main classes of hormones, their characteristics, as well as specific examples. Number 7, be able to define the terms, just some definitions that you're going to need to know. Number 8, know the difference and examples of positive feedback and negative feedback. Again, that is something that we talked about back in A&P 1. So this should be a review. Number 8 should not be brand new information. And then number 9, the 3 ways that endocrine glands can be stimulated. Basically, how do you turn them on? So that's the information for chapter 17 that you're going to be responsible for knowing for the test. Chapter 18, well, we're going to talk about blood. So the cardiovascular system is going to be divided into 3 chapters. You're going to have blood, you're going to have heart, and you're going to have blood vessels. So those are the 3 chapters that encompass the cardiovascular system. Blood is going to be on lecture test 1. The other 2 components of cardiovascular system, the heart and blood vessels, that's going to be on lecture test 2. I think we have a 1A in the middle of that, which is the immune system. So what do you have to know? Again, if you're in lab, you're going to be doing this in lab as well. So you're going to need to know the primary functions of blood, its fluid and cellular components, and its physical characteristics. Number 2, the most important proteins and their solutes and solutes that are present in blood plasma. Describe the formation of the formed elements. So basically, where do white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets come from? How do they get into the bloodstream? Number 4, discuss the structure and function of red blood cells and hemoglobin. Number 5 is all about white blood cells. Number 6 is really about the platelets. Number 7, you're going to need to understand the ABO and RH blood groups. There's about 33 different blood groups. We're just working on the ABO blood group and the RH blood group, and you're going to need to know about those two in terms of blood transfusions and the antigens that they have and the antibodies that are going to be found in blood, universal donor, universal recipient, that kind of stuff. Hemolytic disease of the newborn in relation to the ABO RH blood group. And then number 8, there's a bunch of blood disorders at the end of the PowerPoint that you're just going to need to know some content about. The specific hormones that you're going to need to know for this test are going to be antidiuretic hormone, erythropoietin, thymosin, and melatonin. So yes, you're still going to need to know all 30 some odd hormones, and I'm going to give you, general information. You're going to need to know general information about that, but specifically more in-depth information, you're going to need to know about these 4 hormones. And again, that information is going to be on the Moodle page. So let's take a look. You're also going to have on the test word bits. So I've got chapter 17 up here and chapter 18 up here. You're going to have 2 sets of 5 for a total of 10 word bits. Don't expect them to be like 5 from the endocrine system and 5 from cardiovascular system. They're just going to be random. Okay, so I'm just going to pick out 10, and everybody's going to have different ones. There's going to be different tests. So now we get into the handouts for chapter 17. So one of the things that students have found helpful is just to kind of go through the chapter, get a big idea of what to expect. So these worksheets have been made for you to kind of do that. So it's to kind of get familiar with the chapter kind of stuff. Are these going to be specific questions on the test? Not entirely, okay? Maybe a few, but for the most part, no. This is just really to get you to where you're understanding the content a little bit. It would be helpful to maybe go over this before you take a look at the videos, just to kind of have an idea what we're going to be talking about. Again, this is all for you. This one right here, it's got the little QR code right there. This one right here is one of those ones where you ought to put a little star on this one. You need to watch this video. This is an Armando Hasudigan video. I would say for lecture and for lab, this gives you a big overview of all of the hormones that you're responsible for knowing. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So here you're I did snippets of the video that Armando Hasudigan does and labeled all these A, B, C, D, E. So if you go on to the next page, you notice there's A, B, C, D, E. These correspond. A here, what you're going to do is you're going to label that. That's going to be the hypothalamus, by the way. And then A here, you're going to write the word hypothalamus under the gland. You're going to write down the hormones that are produced and secreted from the hypothalamus and what the function of those are. So there should probably be another line right here so you can kind of write the function of those hormones down. So these 2 pages, it would be helpful if you kind of had them laid out, side by side so you can fill them out simultaneously. So this would be, I would say, a good starting place on learning your hormones. And there are some Moodle assignments on endocrine glands, knowing their name, knowing their abbreviation, the endocrine glands, knowing the gland name and knowing its function, endocrine gland knowing its name and knowing where it's secreted from. So I think there's 3 activities on your Moodle page for that. This is all still over the video, so it's watch the video, follow along. This right here is snippets of the PowerPoints. So this right here is like chapter 17, objective 1, where remember the first objective was comparing and contrasting the endocrine system and the nervous system. This would be a good table to know for the test. I don't have one for every objective, but the objectives that I thought it would be helpful to put pictures of the PowerPoints in so you can write all over those and learn those. Objective 4, these are the different types of intracellular communication picture-wise, so you can kind of see a picture there. This is objective 5, the types of hormones based on structure. More from objective 5, you've got your 2 big categories, your amino acids and your steroids in table form. water-soluble hormones. So definitely this picture here, you should definitely understand what's going on in the picture. We discuss it in the PowerPoint. Again, lipid-soluble hormones. I think this is water-soluble hormones. Yep, and this one's lipid-soluble hormones. And then hormone circulation. How do they circulate in the bloodstream? You've got your water-soluble hormones across the top of the picture. You've got your lipid-soluble hormones across the bottom of the picture, because they're not going to travel the same way in the bloodstream. And then a table comparing the two. You've got your various definitions, what I was trying to say, definitions there. So remember I said objective 8 was just a bunch of definitions. Well, these are some definitions and some pictures, and again, from the PowerPoint to kind of help you understand and do that. So I've also put a practice quiz on here. And I don't know that it's my practice quiz, it is a practice quiz. So it looks like there's two. Yep, looks like there's two different quizzes on here. So I don't have the answers to those. I don't have the key set up within the PowerPoint here, or within the packet here. And then you get to the Chapter 18 handouts. So again, they just kind of follow along. Those are the objectives again. And then get to know the chapter. And then some in-class questions. So as you go through the material, there are some in-class questions that you can answer as you go through. I have these on the Moodle page created for all of the chapters now, but at the time that this was created, I didn't have in-class questions in the packet for everything. Those do have answers to them on the Moodle page. And you can just kind of go through that as you're going through the material, page down pretty quick. And then, oops, let me go to the right place. And then there's a practice quiz at the end. And I did put down there, I'm not sure if any of y'all have Miss Johnson for lab or not, but if you do, some of the worksheets that she passes out in her lab class are included in this lecture packet. So I didn't want you all to be, if you're taking her for lab class, I wanted you to have the same information that everybody else has, because sometimes she gives stuff out for lecture and stuff for her lab people. So those are in here as well. So if you don't have her for lab, don't worry about it. I don't have the answers to those. That's just something that she passes out. So that is the first test. Here's the information here. Let me click the button for the first test. There we go. So on your Moodle page, it tells you when the due date is. So your due date for the first test is going to be due by Friday, August 23rd. I'm going to go ahead and update that and put on there when that test is actually going to open for the testing center, so that way you'll know when you have the ability to first go and take the test. So I'm going to update that for you guys. So this is when it's due. That doesn't mean you should wait till the 23rd at 4 o'clock to go and take that test. So I'm going to update that for you guys, and that way you've got that information. So here are the notes for Chapter 17, the PowerPoint notes, and there's the in-class questions, and there's the key. Here's the notes for Chapter 18. Here are the in-class questions that I created, and then there's the key. So those are not in the packet, because like I said, I kind of did that after the packet came out. So those are there. As far as the 4 specific hormones that you need to know for this test, there's your antidiuretic hormone PowerPoint, your erythropoietin, melatonin, and thymosin. And then I've got all the lecture recordings for all the objectives for Chapter 17, for Chapter 18, and for the hormones. So these videos follow the PowerPoints. So you can take a look at those. Various study materials. I don't even know what all's in here. Some of it is probably in this packet, to be honest. I just didn't delete everything or make it hidden. There is a quiz. This is not for a grade. There's some study materials for Chapter 18. Then you get to the graded activities. So I'm going to remind you all, when it comes to the graded activities with these H5Ps, be sure after you complete the activity, you go back in and look at the grade book and make sure that that grade populated to the grade book. And the reason why it wouldn't do that is if you're not logged into the TC, Texarkana College website, if you're accessing Moodle from an outside source. If you're accessing Moodle from the Texarkana College website, then that should not be a problem. So just verify that. I'm going to go ahead while I'm here. Oh, and there's specific quizzes for the hormones, by the way, that are going to be in-depth tested. And then you've got your testing center test right here. So when you go to take your test in the testing center, you're going to need to log into Moodle, and then pull up your test. Okay. So when you go to the testing center, you're going to need to have your valid Texarkana College ID, and you're going to need to know your username and password to get into Moodle and stuff. So that's all there. When you get done, then go ahead and open up the next unit, which is going to be, right now it's not open for you guys. I just wanted to kind of not scare everybody right away with the volume of content. So I'm going to open that up probably Friday of this week. And that way you can go ahead and start working on lymphatic and immune. Now, lymphatic and immune, I'm going to go ahead and kind of preview this a little bit. This test does not have to go in that order. If you'd rather take lecture test 2 before you take lecture test 1A, that's perfectly fine. Though you don't have to take that beforehand. That lymphatic and immune, in other words, the due dates are going to be overlapping. So if you want to take heart and blood vessel before you take lymphatic and immune, that's fine. Just make sure you get the due dates on both of them make sure your due dates are good. So with that, if y'all have any questions, just let me know, and I will be seeing y'all later. Good luck.